Alright, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the weekly outlook. So, what does weekly outlook mean? That means we are looking at what's going to be happening this week on different pairs. We'll be checking both indices and some other currency pairs, right? So, currently I'm on DXY. DXY is the dollar index, and this is the 1 hour time frame. And what's going to be happening this week on DXY? First of all, we're going to check the 4 hour time frame to check for key zones, right? Key zones is going to give us indicators of what's going to be happening this week, right? And we've seen that DXY has been on an uptrend for a while now. We see that um, we've had good uptrend on DXY for a particular period of time, and you can see that with this that is happening. You can see that has gone up, keep coming down, went back up. So that means that we've had consistent higher highs and higher lows, right? So but this is not actually what we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at what's the possible next direction for DXY, right? So there are two things that are going to happen. Currently, DXY is around a particular key zone. Yeah. So this is a key zone that sponsored price to the downside around this place because we had the range there before we had the price go down to the downside. Now, if you look at this, you will see that that's currently touched that key zone and we're having a reaction to the downside. But obviously, we have to mark other key zones to know where price is going to go to. Right now, we see that price has been going on up, down, up movement. That means that price is creating consistent higher highs and higher lows, right? This is an higher low, this is an higher high, this is an higher low, this is an higher high, this is an higher low, and this is an higher high, right? So um, probably price is coming back to form another higher low and keep going higher high. But this is what we are going to look at. I'm going to look out for once we be able to mark out this key zone around there, this range has sponsored price up. So we'll be looking at price coming down to this key zone, and the reactions that happen here is going to like make price continue to go up. But for me, I would say that we should be looking at buying DXY. We should be looking at further up price on DXY movement, right? Because price currently is trying to form a pattern that I call the head and shoulder. So this is an inverse head and shoulder, right? So price is currently forming in that kind of direction, and this is a likelihood that price will come back down and keep going back up to form more higher highs, right? But of course, reactions on key zones are a normal thing that will always happen in the market, right? So we go to lower time frame, like 1 hour time frame, to see what's going to happen around this zone. So these are likely things that's also going to happen again. We see that around this zone here, we see that price keep rejecting that zone until we had the break where price came back, tapped into this place, came back down, tapped back up, right? Then we had price tap into this zone and we had the reaction to the downside, right? But obviously, price broke that point. That means that we are likely going to have continuous upward to the upside, right? And something that's going to always happen in the market is that price will always come back to this supply or uh, to this zone actually, because there's a lot of volume around this zone. Price always come back to this zone and we'll have a push up to the upside. So my advice. So why are we looking at DXY? We're looking at DXY to also check what other market options is going to give us this week, right? Because DXY is going to be something that we'll be looking out for on what's going to be happening on USDJPY, USCHF, or other currency pairs, even to US 100 and gold, right? So that's that for DXY. So we're looking at price tapping back into this zone and keep going back up. So I'll start to trade I'll start to trade if you're someone that trade the dollar index, I would say that you should try to put it up, start from this point here. Once price breaks above this point, then you can start to buy the XY, and if it breaks below this point, then you can start to sell it back to the downside. But one thing you should always note for is always note out for key zones. Key zones are important levels for you to always check out for that, right? So the next pair we'll be looking at now is let's look at gold. If you look at gold now, go to 4 hour time frame to see what's currently happening on 4 hour time frame, right? On 4 hour time frame or whatever has been happening on gold recently, we see that gold has continued um, um, to test new highs, right? Last week or last month, we had gold tested the all-time high, right? And obviously, something always happens when we go test the all-time high. It always sells a little bit crazy to the downside. Then we have ups, then it starts to go to the upside. But currently, if you look at what's happening on gold, right, you see that when price tapped into the all-time high here, while the downside, that came to these key levels. If you look at this key level, and we had the reaction to the back to the upside, right? But let me tell you what you should look out for on gold. Always look out for where price tap back around this area, right? Always look out for that zone again because price might likely bounce back again from this point. For me, based on key indicators and what's happening currently in the market, I feel like price we are going to see another new all-time high this week or probably next week, right? So this is what you should be looking out for. Once price taps into this zone, right? Where's my part? Okay, so once price taps into this zone, once you start to see reaction that comes back to this side, I'll advise that you always wait for a little bit of a test and you you buy gold back to the upside around this place. So these are the things I feel you should start to look out for on gold. But if otherwise it happens, if you see price breaks this place, right, then you wait for price to test back into this zone, then you're going to take more sales to the downside. So those are the things you're going to look out for on gold. So you sell gold back to another key level around this place, right? If this scenario happen, but if the first scenario happened that I said, right, happens, sells once it sells back to this place, you have a push back to the upside. Always wait for back for retest. Once you retest that place, then you can start to buy gold back. But sometimes gold might not retest because gold is very very volatile. Once you just see that price is reacting well along that zone, I would advise that you start to buy gold back to the last high. So that's that for gold on that. So let's check US 100 to see what's happening currently on US 100. Last week we sent a signal to the WhatsApp channel what's currently happening on US 100, right? So US 100 for our time frame. Last week, price tapped into this zone and we had the good rejection from there, which we sent to the WhatsApp channel. If you have not joined our WhatsApp channel, kindly do so by checking the caption below or wherever it is. You're going to see our WhatsApp link in the caption below. Price tapped into this zone and we had a good rejection to the upside, right? But there are a few things that are going to happen. Which we feel is going to happen is that price tested this point here that had a push back to the downside, right? What I would advise for you is that wait for there are two places that you might start to check for your buys and for your sales, right? Let price come back to this place. Let price come back to this place before you start look for another buys. But like I always say, before you start to look for buys around that place, always wait for price to come down. Once you see a rejection to the upside, always wait for a retest back. Then you have a push up to the upside there, right? Then you start to buy back to around this zone, or you wait another possible zone that price might take a sell back from is this place, right? Why? Because we had the volatility that sponsored price down there, right? So that place is probably going to be a place for you to retest again for another sales. But for you to like confirm the sales from that 0.2. You have to wait for price to get here, come back down, retest, right? They're gonna sell back to the zone. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So all we're just doing here is we're marking zones, possible zones that um price has always rejected from, and possible zones that are strong, right? If you look at your GBPUSD has been on an uptrend for a particular period of time, right? And in a trend, you don't always go counter trend, you always go along the trend, right? And if you see from here, you see that we had the range here, we had a beautiful range here, before we had an expansion to the upside, right? So, and if you see that price has already tested in that zone already, right? And we're having a push to the back to the upside, right? For this kind of trade, I'll go to like lower time frame, like 1 hour or 30 minutes time frame, to see what's happening around that place, right? Just to get a full overview of what the market is trying to say or what the market is doing, right? So for this kind of place right now, this is what I'm going to advise you to do. I'll advise that you allow price to go upward more a bit, right? Before you see a retest. Once you see a retest around this zone, then you can now start to around buy back to the upside. Always look for around maybe 30 to 50 pips. Then you close your trade around that zone, or you can buy to the last high. Do you understand? So for me, I always look out for 50 pips, 35 pips, 40 pips, or at least at most 50 pips in the market. Then from there you're out of the trade, because you're a day trader. Don't always look for second day trade, right? Because that thing is going to happen again in the market in the second day. Let's go to Euro USD. Euro USD trade, right? Let me show us some things. You see that market has been holding around this range while they hold, but actually broke into that point, right? And you will see something clearly here. You see that um, we have two zones here that where market range from here. We had a good supplies around this place, even around this place too, and we are seeing that market is rejecting nicely around that place. That means that that zone is strong, right? So like I always tell you, this 30 minutes time frame, right? Like I always tell you, now that Euro USD is rejecting nicely from that place, right? You always wait for a retest back, right? Markets go back up, always wait for it to come back, retest this area, then you start to buy back up, right? So it's as simple as that. Let's go to 4 hour time frame to see the market overview of what's currently happening. So now, on higher time frame, you see that if you check daily time frame, you see that we have a particular zone here that is very strong, where price rejected nicely from, and that means that we'll probably start to have a good range. Let's check daily time frame so you can see what's happening currently on that area. You see that on daily time frame, we see that price rejected nicely from this zone here, and when price rejected nicely, we had a good sell almost for a week. We had sells to the downside, which of course price is testing back this range and probably is going to buy back up. Then we're going to sell more down. So let me tell you the likelihood of what's going to happen in the market for Euro USD. Let me show you something for Euro USD, right? You're going to mark this zone. You're going to mark this zone as a possible place to sell from. This, let's just pick the old range. Let's pick the old range. So you're going to pick the old range as a possible place to start to sell from, and of course this place back to for possible retest and buy back. So you look for sales around this place. Of course, you also look for retest so as to buy back to this zone. But this is a likelihood of what's going to happen. Let me show you something. So once price gets to this point, right, you wait for, of course, price to come back down, retest, then you sell back. It's as simple as that. There's no rocket science to all these things. It's as simple and as simple as that. Let's check USDJPY, which is going to be our next pair. For USDJPY, I sent this last week. we sent this last week to the channel. So USDJPY likelihood might actually reject back from here. Um, from this zone here, we have a sell back to the downside, right? For but if you look at GXY, like I showed you, GXY is on an uptrend, right? I showed you GXY in the first stuff I showed you, right? GXY is on an uptrend, and which might also follow the same path as USDJPY. So likely what's going to happen on USDJPY is this will have a retest. I feel like just GXY will still come back to test this zone here, and if it doesn't hold there, the next place it's gonna hold is this place, right? If it holds around this area, we'll sell from this area back to this place, then we'll buy back. Like I always say, always wait for confirmations, meaning that if price gets to this place, right, wait for rejection, retest, then we're going to sell back. Same thing again. If whatever happens here, right, if price comes back to this zone, we wait for upward movement, retest, then we'll buy back from that retest. But what if that does not happen? This is another scenario that also play out, right? Let me delete all this so you can understand what I want to say. Let me show you something. If price goes up and it breaks this zone, right, you wait for retest back into this place, right, then you buy back from there. Same thing from here too. If price comes back down, breaks this place, wait for a test back into this zone, they are going to sell back. It's as simple and straightforward as that. So that will be, let's check US30 is going to be our last trade. So you can see that same scenario is happening over and over again on every market, right? Price had broken, or does had a break to the upside from this zone here, which has already broken that point, right? So what we're going to wait for is this. We wait for price. The funny thing is that market can start to reject from here back to the downside, but this is what I'm going to advise you to do. Wait for price to go up, retest back, then you buy back up. It's as simple and straightforward as this. And the next zone again, if you want to buy from, that's if it doesn't happen in that kind of manner, is this place. Another zone again is this zone, right? Because there's a range here, and also this is the last zone before that range. So those are the things we'll be looking out for. Those are the key zones we're going to be looking out for anything we want to do. All right, so thank you for joining. On next week Friday, also this week Friday or next week Monday again, there's going to be another weekly outlook on what has happened so far, and also what we'll be doing next week. Thank you for joining.